So I work with Jason and Heather at our research who make the product Unsub, and I specialize in sales. So the sales aspect and the contractual negotiations are the two things I handle predominantly. And but in this call, Jason's he's the big dog here. He'll be the one who's leading the demo and one of the inventors of the product.
Yeah, and I have the dubious honor of being the co-founder of our research with my very real honor friend Heather Puvovar, who some of y'all may have heard of. She's kind of one of the preeminent researchers in the area of data sharing. And when she was working on her her postdoc, she went to a hackathon that I also went to. And I knew her because I had peer reviewed one of her papers, because I was a researcher also at the time. I was getting my PhD, and I was working in the field of altmetrics. And so so we did this hackathon together, and hackathon ended at 6, and we just kind of kept working, and then we look up and there's all these people in the hallway. They kicked us out of the room we were in because we were going too late. And then we were in the hallway, and they're like, there's all these people. And we're like, wow, these people. And they're like, oh, they're serving breakfast. So we spend the entire night just zoned in, like building stuff. And so so that's still what we do. We still build stuff. We love to build stuff. And Unsub is the latest thing that we built. We've been doing this for about 8 years. And we started with with a tool called Impact. So we started with a tool called Impact Story. Then we built something called Unpaywall, which y'all may have heard of. Unpaywall is a really big index, the world's largest index of all of the world's open access. So anything that's open access anywhere in the world, that's an Unpaywall. That's an Unpaywall index. And the index is free. It's open. We're super and open. That's kind of our whole thing. And so we just kind of put that out there and made it free for anybody to use. One of the things that we got requested a lot when we put out that Unpaywall database is people said, could we use this database of 25 million open access papers to help us make subscription decisions, right? So we got to decide, should we subscribe to this journal or that journal? If this one's mostly open access, maybe we don't need to. So we said, okay, great, we can do that. So we built a tool that does that, and that's Unsub. It helps people make subscription decisions based largely on the open access availability. And then it does a lot of other cool things as well. So I got some slides. I'm going to go straight into those slides real quick. And so a lot of people are talking about cutting budgets. So y'all are not alone in that at all. And when they start cutting budgets, one of the first things I want to talk about is cutting big deals. Again, I hear y'all are already talking about that. And that's something that has really been in the air for a long time, right? I think that this article from Scarlet Kitchen was one of my favorites that came out last year, talking about the value of the big deal seems to be dropping, right? The value is something that has always been touted by the publishers, but as more and more of that content in the big deal is available open access, right, the value that they're delivering starts to decline. So in a lot of ways, there's never really been a better time to cut your big deal. But there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt around that. I always call that FUD. I say there's a lot of FUD around that. And the publishers, of course, are not, they're not unhappy about this. They kind of like that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? That FUD that says, what's going to happen? What would happen? Has anyone done this before? Would we get yelled at? Will we still be able to provide great access to our users, right? All this fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So Unsub is designed to solve that FUD. It's a data dashboard to help forecast, explore, and optimize your alternatives to the big deal so that you can cut the FUD, cut your big deal, and save money confidently. And that's what we're all about. We're really trying to emphasize that confident piece because it's possible, right? People have been cutting their big deals for a long time in small numbers. It's just the confidence that I feel like a lot of times is lacking. So how does that work? How do we give you this confidence? Well, there's 3 stages. We've got a model. We use the model to make a forecast. And then the forecast helps you make some choices. And then once you've made your choices, those feed back into the model. So let's dig into that a little bit. So the idea is that, the model helps you forecast, helps you choose, helps you make more models, which allows you to understand your options without the guesswork. That's the kind of payoff. Anyway, now let's dig into the details. What do I mean by the model? What happens in the model? Well, it's actually models because we have one model for every journal. So all of the journals that you're looking to potentially subscribe to that would be part of your big deal, each of those has its own specific model. And the model is split into 2 parts. There's a global model and a custom model. So the global model includes open access, backfile, and interlibrary loan. So what we're modeling is how much of your usage can you fulfill with open access? How much can you fulfill with backfile? And how much of it would you fulfill with interlibrary loan? So that's the kind of the global model. And we've built that model. We've trained it with data from thousands of other libraries. So it's kind of a trained model in the same way I always kind of look at it as like a, you know, when you're trying to predict a storm, like a weather forecast, right? They've trained their model on thousands and thousands of other storms. We've also got the list price. But it's not enough to have that global model. We've also got to customize the model, right? So you train the model on thousands of storms, but you got to make a prediction about this storm. So we customize it to you by using your faculty citation and your faculty authorship. So we look at, for your particular university, how many times has your faculty cited a particular journal? Remember, this is a journal level model. So how many times has your faculty cited this journal? How many times has your faculty authored in this journal? We've also looked at, of course, your downloads, right? How often are people from your university reading this journal? And we also can customize it with your backfile data and your price data. So if you've got your own unique price data, we can feed that into it. And if you've got backfile perpetual access holdings that are different than maybe the standard, like maybe you've got, you know, this one particular journal, you've got perpetual access between 2016 and 2018, but then you have a gap, and then from 2019 onwards. That's fine. You can customize the model to reflect that. So kind of already talked about that. The downloads via counter, I guess I have highlighted just because that's sort of the most important part, right? Because that's kind of the usage that people are actually in practice, right? Like getting into. So once we've got the model, then we can make a forecast. So similarly to before, we've got kind of two sizes. We got the journal level forecast and the overall forecast. So the journal level forecast, we're looking at, again, open access, backfile, interlibrary loan, and cost per use. Those are the kind of things for each journal that we're trying to spotlight. And then overall, we're going to sum all that together and give you your overall forecast, looking at your cost and your fulfillment. We're particularly interested in instant fulfillment. That's going to be something that is going to be super important when we do the demo in a second, is we're looking at how much money are you going to spend and how much fulfillment can you provide instantly. Those are the kind of the two big variables that we're most concerned about. Because, right, if you could pay less money, but still fulfill almost all of your usage instantly, that's a win for you. That's kind of the way we're looking at it. And in most cases, folks are able to save a lot of money. So they can normally spend about 20% of what they were spending before and deliver about 80% of their fulfillment instantly. So that's kind of, you know, save a lot, sacrifice a little. That's kind of the model. And then finally choose. So we got these three steps of the model, right? We got the model, we got the forecast, and we got the choose. So in choosing, you can choose to change your subscriptions or your assumptions. So your subscriptions, you can base that on cost per use, you can base it on the subject area, or you can base it on some other property of the journal that you choose. And then your assumptions, you can change some of your assumptions about how much is this going to cost. So for instance, what does it cost for you to do an interlibrary loan request, right? Does that cost $5, $10, $15, $20? Depends. You can change that assumption and see how it changes the model. So to recap, we're looking at a model, and then from the model, we go to a forecast. From the forecast, you can make some choices, and then the choices will feed back into the model and make you a new forecast. You can kind of just keep doing that loop. So let's check it out. Remember, the idea is that we can cancel with confidence. Apparently, I thought that was something I should say multiple times. And here we are. I have. All right, let me move the little screen sharing thing so I can see my own screen. And I'm going to slide over here to Unsub. So this is a demo university, as you can see. This is using real data from a real US university. We've just, you know, kind of keep the name quiet. And so this university page doesn't have a lot going on. Notice you can add group members, so you can collaborate with other people on this. We're going to go straight to the publisher, package. So this is your Elsevier package. And I'm going to grab a drink of tea. My throat is not fully cooperating. So this is our Elsevier package, and we can do a couple different things with the Elsevier package. We can do forecasts. Remember, I was just talking about the forecast. We can look at APCs, and we can do setup. So let's look at the setup real quick. This is pretty cool because it shows you how difficult it is to actually create an Unsub account. And it's not. It's incredibly easy. It's super easy to do this. All you need to do actually is upload this counter report. And we've already done that, so we could delete it. We could upload a new one if we wanted to. But we've uploaded our counter report, and then optionally, we can also upload some price data. So you can see that we're using the default public price right now. There's a couple of journals without prices. And so if we wanted to, we could upload our own custom prices which the demo account can't do. But if you had your real account, you could do that. And then you would be able to see those custom prices. Hang on, I'm going to move my window so it's a little bit easier to see, I think. Yeah, and then finally, like I said, you can also customize your perpetual access data. So it's really easy to customize. It's really straightforward. You can do it yourself. You don't have to wait. We're going to jump right into that forecast now. Let's look at this first scenario, because this is the main meat of what the tool does. All right, now we got a lot going on this first scenario. So I'm going to take it one step at a time. And let's start with, well, we've got two main blocks, right? We got our 5-year overview, and we got our a la carte journals. Remember, I was talking a minute ago about how we've got the journal level, and we've got the overall level. So we got the overall level here. This is the 5-year overview, a la carte journals. Let's start with the overview. And if we look at the overview, we can see there's 3 parts to that overview. There is the subscriptions part of the overview, and clearly we've got 0 right now. So what we're actually modeling is a complete walk away. We're saying Elsevier, we're kicking you to the curb, we're done, we don't want a big deal, and we don't want any subscriptions of any kind. We're subscribing to 0 Elsevier content of any kind. We may want to change that. We'll do that in a minute. But for now, that's where we're at, 0 subscriptions. So then we got down here, we got cost and fulfillment. Remember I said these are going to be the 2 variables that are important for us, right? The costs and the fulfillment. So let's look at the cost. That one's pretty straightforward, right? So this is the amount that we would expect to pay in this cancellation scenario. Now we're projecting, this is important, remember, the next 5 years. So this is a forecast, right? In the same way that I was mentioning the storm forecast, right? You could look at the radar and see what the storm is doing right now, but what you want to know is what's the storm going to be doing in an hour when I have a picnic plant, right? We're trying to do the same thing with this tool. We're trying to say, what's going to be happening over the next 5 years. So over the next 5 years, you're going to spend an annual average of $231,000 a year. Now, how are you spending money if you've done a complete cancellation? Well, we can look at the graph and we can see that. You are saving a lot of money. You're saving $2 million over what you were spending on your big deal, but you are going to still spend some money on interlibrary loan. So you're going to spend about another $230,000 on interlibrary loan, right? And that's because you used to have subscriptions to all this stuff. No one ever needed to request it via ILL. Now sometimes people do need to request it. Now where's that number come from? How do we get that $230,000, right? That's a question a lot of times people have. Well, it comes from a couple different sources. One of the sources is the cost. So here's that parameters that I was mentioning. Look at our ILL costs. So we're estimating about $17 per ILL transaction. Is that a reasonable number? Maybe, maybe not. This is based on a survey of the literature. So this is the average, but maybe you can do it for less, maybe you can do more. So you just change that number right there. So let's go ahead and try that. Let's try and change that number. I'm going to change it from $17 to let's make it 10. We'll be a little more optimistic. So we can get a little cheaper than that. So you could probably guess, if I'm going to change my ILL cost per transaction, what's going to happen to my ILL costs down here and my overall costs up here? They're going to go down, right? Because each transaction costs us a little bit less money. The overall ILL cost is going to go down, right? So we went from about 200,000, 230,000 to 136,000, right? So that's pretty straightforward. That's not very complicated. But there's another source of that ILL data, and that is how often will people even need to make a request, right? A bunch of times they don't need to make a request because even though we've canceled the journal, they can still get the content instantly for free. And that's what moves us over here into the second bar, this instant fulfillment bar. So there's 2 main kinds of instant fulfillment. The first one is open access. So 35% of the requests that we would get to these canceled journals will be fulfilled via open access free instantly, no problem, right? So these are kind of our best case scenario ones, right? A third of the time, the cancellation doesn't even matter, right? And then here's another quarter of the time, this back file, same thing. This is perpetual access content that you've already purchased. This is stuff that people are looking back to read and you've already got it. So a quarter of the time, again, this is best case scenario, right? Like, hey, I went to the journal, I read my article, I never even knew there was a cancellation. And then finally we got this 39% of the time, those are the times when there's a delayed access. So these are the times that would potentially trigger an ILL request because the library can't fulfill that instantly. We're gonna have to go to the sort of delayed route of ILL. And so that's where we get the other part of that kind of ILL equation. So this gives us a sense of, okay, look, if we were to walk away right now and not subscribe to a single journal, what would the landscape look like? Well, it looked pretty good. We're saving 2.1 million bucks. And we can tell faculty, hey, yeah, there has been a cancellation, but we got good news for you. More than 50% of the time, more than half of the time, you're still going to get your resource instantly, right when you ask for it. More than half the time. and the library is going to save $2 million. So that's kind of a good story that we can come to Factly with. But as I mentioned before, we can actually do even better than that. We can improve on that story by adding a couple select subscriptions, right? Some targeted subscriptions of a couple journals that offer really good value. So let's take a look at this a la carte journals tab, and this will help us find the journals that offer really good value. So this is arranged by cost per use. You can see down there, it's Elsevier journals by cost per use. And down here, we've got the kind of lousy cost per use titles. So this is like $99 per use. There's one that I like to use as an example. I'm going to search for it real quick. It's a mathematics journal. I think it's somewhere down here. Discrete. We'll do that one. So this is Advances in Applied Mathematics, and this gives you a sense of how we calculate this number, the CPU number. So we're doing the CPU number in a little bit more of a comprehensive way than you may be familiar with. So we start with downloads, no big change there. But we also then add in citations and authorships. And the way we add those in is we just say, well, for every citation from your university, we're going to add an extra 10 downloads, sort of virtual weighted downloads. And you can change that in the parameters. So if you want to say, okay, well, I think a citation should be worth 10 downloads, great. But if you think it should be worth 12 or 5 or 100 or 0, that's great. You can just change that in the parameters. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But so we sum that all up and we get our weighted uses. So it gives us about 80 weighted overall uses. And then we look at our open access percentage. How many of those uses can we potentially meet with open access? Well, for this particular journal, because it's in mathematics, we can actually meet 85% of those uses via open access. We can meet another 10% with backfile. That leaves only 10 paywalled uses. So even though the usage, right, is at 80, the paywall usage is at 10. That's all that we got to really pay for. So if we look at our ILL cost, it rounds to, it's not a whole number, but, if we kind of do the division out, it's about $4 that we would spend ILL on this journal, whereas the subscription is $1,000. So our net subscription, right, our cost of subscribing is maybe $1,000. That makes, for our 10 paywall uses, about $100 per use. That's not a good deal. We don't want to subscribe to this journal, right? Because basically OA is making, open access is making it so that a subscription is just not cost effective. So I'm going to close that one. Let's go ahead and show all of our journals again. So these ones over here, these are kind of the good ones, right? This one's Cell. This one's got a negative 12 cents cost per use. How can you have a negative cost per use? Well, let me show you. You see that this is a delayed OA title, right? So there is open access in Cell. And in fact, if you look down here, it's 68% of the usage can be addressed via open access. However, there's a 12-month embargo on that OA, which means that a lot of the recent content is not open access. And what's cool about our model is that, as I mentioned, it's actually one model per journal. So when we model a mathematics journal, we can look at the usage curve for that journal and see, a lot of that old content in math is still used, right? Mathematics is not a fast-moving field. So a lot of the old content stays relevant. Whereas when we look for something like Cell is in biomed's super fast-moving field. A lot of that old content, even 12 months ago, doesn't get access. People aren't interested in it. So that is how we can kind of calculate the open access a little differently for each of these two journals. Plus, in the case of Cell, just the total usage is massive. It's a very highly used title. So what that means is, even after we've subtracted out the OA, we're looking at 10,000 paywalled uses. The cost to meet that via interlibrary loan is $4,000. Well, heck, I could just subscribe to the journal for $3,000, right? So it actually costs me, the net subscription cost is negative, in that it's cheaper for me to subscribe to this journal than it is for me to cancel it and meet all of that ILL demand. So that's how you get a negative cost per use, because it's actually cheaper to subscribe. So let's subscribe, right? If it's cheaper to subscribe to, there's just no reason not to. So I'm going to command click on that. And now you can see we've got one subscription. That little dot has turned blue. And you can even see on this graph, tiny little sliver here of a la carte subscription. So we've got a little bit of our usage is now being met by a la carte subscription. So let's just keep doing this. Let's subscribe to more of these little guys down here who seem to be such a good deal. I'm going to use this arrow key to do that. And what it will do, I did want to overwrite my subscription there, is it's just going to, it's just going to keep subscribing to the best value journals. So there it goes. And as it goes, you can see that my cost is going up and my instant fulfillment is going up. So my backfill and my open access, those don't change, right? That's what it is, right? Like whether I subscribe or not, that's the percentage that I could get for free. But my subscription access has now gone way up because I subscribe to all these journals. So I'm gonna do it again. To me, it's kind of interesting to see how I'm gonna set it to 0, and I'll go from the bottom again. To me, what's interesting is to see how my costs go up and my subscription access goes up as I subscribe to these titles. And you see how fast now the subscription starts going up until finally now I would pay more in a la carte subscription fees than I would have paid for my big deal. So that doesn't make any sense. What I think is so cool is that at the beginning here, my fulfillment goes up really fast, but my costs go up kind of slow because these are really good value journals. But then as I keep moving into the lower value journals, now my access goes up slow, but my costs go up really fast because now I'm in these lower value journals. So what that means is most of the time, now you can kind of decide this yourself, but most of the time folks generally want to subscribe kind of in this sort of sweet spot of maybe around 80%. So maybe around here. So remember I said promised 80-20, kind of depends on the university. This university couldn't quite get that. So they would spend about 30% of what they were spending on their big deal, and they'll get 80% of the fulfillment instantly, right? Because they got their open access, their back file, and then the subscription can make up another 20% or so. So what you can now tell your faculty, which is even cooler to me, is, hey, 80% of the time, 4 out of 5 times you go to access an Elsevier title. I know you hear we canceled things, but 4 out of 5 times, same experience for you. You go, you read it. No fuss, no muss. Only 1 out of 5 times are you going to have to submit an ILL request, and then we're still going to get it for you. It'll just be a little bit of a wait. So that's kind of the thing that's kind of the main story that folks find very compelling about this. And we hear a lot of folks are screenshotting this particular screen right here and then using that in presentations that they would give to their faculty, just to kind of give faculty the overall story. So let me show you another couple cool features of this, and then we can open up for questions. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions, and I appreciate that y'all are staying a little bit late today for me. So let's show, first of all, let's say your school does a lot of petroleum research, right? So I'm just going to look for petro, and by doing that, we can see, okay, well, this one's not a very good cost per use, but it's petroleum, and we got to have that. So I'm going to command click to that one. Now you watch the cost goes up a little bit. That's not too big of a difference. And now we've got these 2 journals that, even though their cost per use maybe isn't amazing, we got to have them so we can get them. So that's one kind of fun thing that you can do. Let's do another thing that's kind of fun. We're going to switch over to this table view. Same data, exact same data, only now we got 1 row per journal instead of 1 dot per journal. And one of the neat things about the table view is I can start adding a couple other variables into this. So let's add a citation variable. We're going to look at citations to papers. And then I'm going to sort by that column, sort descending. And now we're going to see my most cited journal, the journal that my faculty cite the most, is Cell at 521 citations per year. And as we scroll down, we can see that we've already subscribed to most of my most highly cited titles. There's a couple that are sort of sticking out here, though. This brain research, for whatever reason, didn't get captured, right? Because maybe the downloads are a little bit lower, even though citations are high. So I can just command click to that, and then we'll subscribe to that one too. And now if we go back to the histogram view, there it is, kind of sticking out by itself, brain research, but we wanted to get it because it was highly cited, right? So why not? So we can do a lot of kind of fun like customization stuff like that. The other big area that you can customize, we talked about, I showed already, is the parameters, right? So the citation authorship weighting, right? That's at 10. If you want to change that to something else, you can change it to something else. You can change a lot about what types of OA you want to count. So when you're looking at fulfillment sources, you can include or exclude ResearchGate hosted content. You can kind of really nerd out on a lot of stuff. That's our goal. We're kind of nerdy about it too, so we want to make that easy. You can export what you've got as a spreadsheet so that you can fit it into your own analysis. You can also use an API. And then what's pretty cool is that you can go back, and now I've got this. This is my first scenario, but I can also just let's copy this. We're gonna make a copy, and we're gonna call this bad news. So that scenario was kind of an optimistic one because I was assuming that my ILL cost, I was only gonna cost me, $10 per transaction. Maybe that's a little low. Let's look at what would be some bad news that we could get. How about if cost of subscription growth went up a lot. So this is the a la carte subscription growth. So this is how much every year to year these a la carte prices are going to go up. Historically for Elsevier, that's been about 8%. Let's say, hey, maybe Elsevier gets really aggressive with their pricing now. What if over the next 5 years, they double that? What if they go up by 16%? They're just going to hit save, and then it's going to think for a minute. Like I said, because it's actually like 2,000 separate journal models, it takes a little while to do this recalculation. But what we'll see is, you can probably predict, our costs are going to go up because all of these a la carte prices are a little higher now than they were before. So this kind of gives us our bad news scenario. So what's neat about this is we can kind of compare, hey, look, it's still not that bad. We'd spend $18,000 a year. That's 35% instead of 30% of what we were paying before. But this gives us the ability to kind of, I was kind of promised to say, like, let's make us a little bit more confident when we use this tool, right? Like, instead of having to do a lot of guesswork, a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt, let's be able to say, hey, what would happen if Elsevier raised their prices? Well, this is what would happen, right? Is this great news? No. Is it apocalyptic, catastrophic news? Also no. Right. So this gives us just kind of a chance to know what we're about and have really kind of a data supported outlook on this. And then whether or not we cancel or we go with this. So we got a lot of people who canceled, or we go in and we just have a better negotiating position. Right. A lot of times it's all about just telling us, hey, look, we don't want to walk away, but if we had to, we could, and it wouldn't be the end of the world. Or a lot of times that's what folks are looking for. And I think people have success using the tool in both of those contexts. Kind of, I like to always close with our big success story, which is SUNY, the State University of New York. They have about 60 campuses, a decent size system, and they canceled their Elsevier contract thanks to Unsub. So they came to us, they said, hey, look, we're negotiating with Elsevier. They're playing hardball. Could we use your data to help us? And we worked with them, and thanks to the tool, and they're really generous about saying, hey, look, this is because of what you guys did. They were able to walk away from that Elsevier deal. They were able to select 200 a la carte journals that were targeted subscriptions that they found based on the tool. And at the end of the day, they went from a $9 million big deal to a $2 million collection of a la carte subscriptions. So they're saving $7 million a year right now, based on the tool. So we're really excited about that. And there are a number of other negotiations currently ongoing that are using the tool. And we'll probably have good news to report on those pretty soon too. But SUNY is the one that we're really excited about. We try and let everybody know that I think there's a lot of potential for the tool to save folks a lot of money, and that's what we're all about. So that's it. I'd love to hear any questions y'all have.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. That was fantastic. You did speak really quickly, but I think we got it all. So let's open the discussion up to everybody for questions. Feel free to unmute and ask a question, but preferably if you could raise your hand using the little hand raising tool.
Glenn, there is a chat question that came in, and I didn't see who it was from. I don't know if you could open the chat up there. And it was about currency exchange. Yeah.
Would it be possible to add or pull in any currency exchange conversion information at the annual cost calculation?
Well, I think there's maybe two questions there, is the way I'm going to break it down. And one of them is, does the interface have to be kind of in US dollars, like with dollar signs and stuff like that? And no, it doesn't. That's something that will be changing for us, this year for sure, is we'll offer the ability to change the display to different currencies. Yeah. That's something a lot of our international users have asked for. For sure, it's on the roadmap for us. It's just one of those things where the tool is pretty new, and we're just kind of trying to keep up with the backlog of feature requests. But that is absolutely coming. And then I think there could be kind of another thing which would be better, maybe, which is, could we kind of create kind of a currency rate conversion, kind of model where we're like, well, what happens if my currency does well against the euro, or well against the US dollar, and what happens if my currency does badly against the euro or the US dollar? And I don't think that we probably will include that in the tool in the short term or medium term, mostly because I think that starts getting a little outside the scope of the tool as a scholarly communications tool and a little bit more as like an economic forecasting tool. And that's not our area of expertise. So I think the way that you would do that in the prediction is you would probably just import a new set of custom prices for your journals. So when you know, as I mentioned, right, you can upload any custom prices that you want. That's where you would do here, you'd upload custom price. So what I would do if I wanted to kind of model like a worst case scenario, like what happens if, you know, for you guys, like the rand collapses or something, right now, I only have half the purchasing power that I used to. I would just double all of the USD prices and upload that here. And that will give you the same, that would give you kind of the result that you'd be looking for. It's a little bit of a hack, but I think it would do what you're asking.
Right. Stephen, before we go into the next, sorry, Jason, before we go into the next question, I'd like to just add something there that certainly when looking at these issues from a SANLiC point of view, I found it more convenient to convert all prices to the US dollar. And to do that, I use an average of a full year. So at the moment, I'm using the average of the 1st of July 2019 to the 31st of June 2020, and taking that average across that period and using that as the conversion rate, and then looking at all prices in US dollars. The main reason being that it's such a moving target that it doesn't really help to look at costs in South African rands. But we can discuss that later if folks want to. Shirlene has asked, how many institutions are using this tool?
Yeah, terrific question. I should have included that in the presentation, so thanks for bringing that up, Shirlene. So we have about 250 to 300 institutions using the tool right now. They're kind of, there's a little gray area in that number because some of them are kind of in the middle of onboarding at any given time. We probably sign up a new institution every day or two. So there's a lot of growth right now in the tool. And we will be signing up some very large consortia in the next few weeks, we expect. Some of the consortia that I would think of as sort of peers for SANLiC might be CRCAN. So that's the Canadian National Consortium. Like I said, SUNY has some things in common. Colorado Alliance is definitely a little smaller, so they're about maybe 20 institutions. Viva, which is Virginia, US Virginia Coalition, similarly is about 20 institutions. So again, that's a little bit on the smaller side. Lyrasis is quite a large consortium in the US. They've got something like 1,000 members or something like that. But they're a little bit more decentralized, I think, than you guys are. So they're not like the closest peer. And then, yeah, and so those are, and we're talking with a couple others that I can't name that I would describe as very similar to y'all as well. But I think CRCAN would probably be the one that would be the closest that I know of that would be to y'all's experience. And they're loving the tool so far.
Yeah. I'm not seeing any other questions or hands at this stage, but perhaps while we're waiting, I don't know if Jason, you want to answer this, or Stephen.
There's one more, Glenn, that came in around Elsevier. Just another chat question around.
Well, go ahead, Stephen. Do you want to introduce it?
Let me see if I can see it again there. 1 second.
Okay. I see it.
Yeah, you used Elsevier as an example. What other big deals can we apply Unsub to? So, Jason, do you want to talk about Wiley and Springer Nature?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Yeah, it's interesting how much of the percentage of our demand has been around Elsevier. That has been by far the most requested. But the second most requested was Wiley. So we rolled that out like a month or two ago. And then Springer Nature, which is pretty cool, is going to be coming out like within a few weeks. Maybe much sooner than that, but definitely within a few weeks. From there, we're not sure what our next ones are. We're basically kind of letting the community decide. So we're kind of like cast your vote. You know, if there's a particular publisher that you're really excited about, let us know. We expect to have all of the major publishers done in the fall. And then we would expect to have, I would say 90%, basically all publishers would be done by the end of the year. So by the end of the year, you'd be able to use for any big deal that you have. And then what's kind of cool about the tool is also, even if you're not in a big deal context, you can throw, you know, because this is based off your counter files, you can throw loose subscriptions, right? If you've got just one publisher that publishes one journal, right? You can make a profile for that and see what that one journal looks like, right? See what you could meet with open access for that particular journal. So you're not really limited to just big deals over time. Right now you are, but by the end of the year, that won't be true.
Okay, and then Lindiwe had a question. Go ahead, Lindiwe.
That lie ahead for us.
Please
But
repeat,
I think
we didn't hear the start of your question.
Okay, my question is, this is an excellent tool. So I want clarity first. Are we looking at this as a SANLiC buy or as both SANLiC and each institution buying it for themselves? And two, obviously at this juncture, we're worried about pricing. So I would also be interested to just have an indication.
The first question. So I can just say what our model is. So our model is generally for consortia. What we do is, we work directly with the consortium, and then we give them a price based on the number of institutions and the size of the institutions within the consortium. Then they pay the price, they collect it from the members and send the money to us. So that's generally the way, we've done it in the past. We also, the tool can be purchased by an individual institution if folks want. So that is another option. I think someone at Johannesburg already did that. And there's a number of other individual institutions worldwide who have done that as well. So that's another way that you can get the tool for sure. And I think that's kind of up to you guys, whether you want to do it from the consortial approach or the individual institutions. And then in terms of the price, I think that we quoted a price in an email thread to Glenn, but I don't right now exactly remember what that was. Steve, do you have that number?
Yeah,
I do. We did it based on tiers. So Glenn had just sent me over the revised, Glenn's done a good job of negotiating with us for everybody on the phone. So we've got, I've got that pricing from Glenn, and I just have to review it first before we confirm it. But Glenn, you may have that in front of you. I think the other piece too, just for the listeners, is that if it's done through SANLiC, you'll have both your own institutional view and there'll be a consortial SANLiC roll-up view, right? So, which will amalgamate all the institutions' data sort of into one, global dashboard in essence.
Yeah, great point, Steve. Thanks. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, there we go. Okay. So this is the pricing that we're looking at the moment. It sounds like we just need to finalize the deal a little bit more precisely. Just to answer that SANLiC would certainly be happy to do a single invoice for this, and it would certainly help SANLiC a great deal to be able to analyze deals across all the members together. I think one of the complications with the Elsevier deal is that you only have perpetual access to your historically subscribed titles, and I'd be interested to know whether the Unsub tool enables you to differentiate the historically subscribed titles. I presume that's the back file that you would effectively define. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah. Okay. So SANLiC would certainly be very happy to look at that. But I think that what I'd be interested to hear a little bit more of a discussion about is around interlibrary loans. And my understanding is that one could get an electronic interlibrary loan from anywhere in the world at any time. I don't know if anyone can confirm that for me or not, but I've spoken to some representatives from institutions in the United States where we could sign up and download anything within minutes. So I think that the timing of interlibrary loans is quite. Am I correct? I mean, I don't know if anyone can confirm that for me. That even if we didn't have those journals within our membership, we would be able to get it from any other library in the world. Is that correct? Steve or Jason, do you?
I don't actually know the answer to that question, Glenn. I'm sorry. I mean, maybe Jason knows the answer to the question from his experience.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good question, Glenn. The libraries that we have worked with have largely been in North America. and Europe so far. So that is their experience, yeah. But I would want to probably check me on that, just because I don't have. You guys would be, I think, our first customers in Africa. I would assume it would work the same, but I wouldn't want to, say I'm an authority on that just because I don't have much experience with it.
Yep. Okay. All right.
I think just Glenn, just a piece too for everybody on the phone. So the pricing Glenn has shared is SANLiC consortium pricing for each institution, which is considerably, in a great way, considerably less than the new tiered pricing model we offer now. So if you did want to compare, you can just go to the Unsub page and you'll see the new pricing structure based on library material spend, which is significantly higher than in a lot of cases than what Glenn and Nora have negotiated for you. So I just want to make, sorry, Glenn, I just want to make that point that's how this pricing is working.
Right. Thanks. And unless we can come back to pricing if anyone still has a question there, but I think, am I hearing correctly that you would prefer a single invoice? Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. Okay. And what if only, say, 5 or 10 institutions decide to come along and the rest don't? Is that going to be a problem?
That's a
good
Jason
question.
answer,
Yeah, we can make that work for sure. Our goal, so we're a nonprofit, we're a mission-driven nonprofit. Our goal is very simple, is we really want to change the way scholarly communication works. Right. And we feel like part of that is helping libraries get out from under these oppressive big deals. Right. And so that's a big part of our goal. And so if we can do that for one library, great. If we can do that for 10, hey, that's 10 times better. If we can do that for everybody, that's even better. So that's why our pricing is pretty aggressive. There's been some other folks who have come out with similar tools to this. Typically, they're looking at 10 times the price of what we're offering. We're really trying to get it out there as cheaply as we possibly can. So yeah, and any group of people that is interested in it, we'll work with them. We'll get it out there for them. In terms of the most value for the tool, it does work best if you can get everyone in the consortium involved. And the reason for that is because you're negotiating the prices at the consortium level. And so ideally, you would want the data that you have to be consortium level data. If you've only got data from half a dozen institutions, but you're negotiating on behalf of 30, you're not getting the full picture. So that's why we want people, if possible, to try and get it for everybody. But if they can't, that's fine too. We'll work with people where they're at. As Steve said, we're actually kind of locking you guys this offer into sort of our older pricing, which we don't offer anymore. So that would be the other kind of upside of, if you can get everybody together, then we can give you, I think, a pretty great deal on a per institution basis. Whereas if you were to do it kind of piecemeal, the individual institutions, I think, would end up paying, maybe 2-3 times as much.
Yep. And then Dorette has asked, what information can be exported into a report?
Oh yeah, great question. This is a question I love, because everything, 100% of the information can be exported into the report. So we love open data. Open is our whole, like I said, our whole raison d'etre. And so yeah, everything that you see on that screen, you can get in a spreadsheet. And in fact, we have a lot of users who do that. We've got users who say, we've got a workflow that we already have for doing this analysis. We just want your data. And then so they'll export the spreadsheet. They'll input that into Tableau, into Excel, into different SPSS, even different workflow tools that they've got, and then they can build their own forecasting from that. So 100% of what you see on the screen can be exported in spreadsheet form.
Right. And then just repeat for me which journal sets you already have loaded in the system.
Right now, Elsevier and Wiley. In a week or two, Springer Nature.
All right. Okay. So just to let the members know, from the SANLiC data analysis, that is where we have the biggest problems of cost per article of research output across the consortium. So for me, those would have been the first 2 ports of call if it were up to me to look at a cancellation. So that's quite interesting. That seems to be where the cost, the value is most questionable.
Yep, exactly. And it's one of those where, like, if if you catch someone throwing eggs at your house, there's a pretty good chance they've thrown eggs at other people's houses as well. And so this is one of those where, like, you know, if Elsevier is causing you trouble, they're causing other people trouble, you know? And so it's the same bad actors again and again. And that's why we're excited to be kind of sticking it to these guys, because they're not playing fair. And I think what we're doing helps level that playing field. Well,
we hope you add Taylor and Francis, Informer, and as number 4 on your list. That would be fantastic.
Great. Okay, good. Well, I'll write that down.
All right. So, folks, Steve and Jason, if you don't mind giving us, we'll just, I'll keep you just for 2 to 3 more minutes, if you don't mind, folks, just to get a bit of feedback from you. But Jason and Stephen, thank you very much for joining us so early in your day. And
yeah, absolutely.
We'll stay.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right.
Yeah, thank you all so much. I appreciate you being patient with my fast talking and being willing to stay a little late for us. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day.
Okay, thanks, folks. Take care. Thanks, Glenn.
So, so folks, thank you very much for joining us. If we could just use this time to open up to the floor. I have prepared a little poll. I'm going to launch it now. Just if you could give us some indication of your level of interest in Unsub. But I don't know if you have any further questions for us, either about this webinar or about the future ones that we have planned. So I'm opening up to the floor. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Glenn, it's Engela.
Yes, hi.
It looks very promising for me, but seeing that they don't have all the publishers in it yet, how useful will that really be? That's just what I would like to know.
Okay, that's a good question. You know, when one looks at cost benefit, I'm just going to share something with you quickly, which will help to answer that question for you. If I look at cost benefit across SANLiC subscriptions, can you see my shared screen at this moment, Engela?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I've ranked all of our 2020 subscriptions according to the journal subscription spend. So in other words, I've tried to filter out expenditure on expenditure that isn't specifically for journal subscriptions. And what we find there is that Elsevier's Science Direct accounts for 32% of our expenditure across the consortium, and Wiley another 17%. So if we have immediate access to those two, that covers 50% of our expenditure straight away. And if they're adding Springer Nature in a week's time, that is 60% of our expenditure straight away that we would be able to analyze within a week from now. And I presume it would continue to grow. So if they added Taylor and Francis, suddenly we're talking 80.63%. And if they added, by the end of the year, if they've added the top 14 deals, that will cover more than 95% of our expenditure. So from that point of view, I think that, with time it would improve, but right away it would prove incredibly valuable. And when I look at compare our research output and our potential expenditure in a world where one only spends on APCs rather than subscriptions, if we ever get there, in that sort of ideal world, when you compare our expenditure in Elsevier on subscriptions through SANLiC against if one were to flip all the journals and you were to spend only on paying to publish with APCs, you potentially will free up 57% of your expenditure. So from that point of view, you know, that's where the 80-20 principle comes in and where the low-hanging fruit is. Are there any other questions?
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Glenn, it's Madeleine van Heerden. I wonder if I can just ask, do you have, this tool requires information on the back files. Do you have that information for all the participants in SANLiC?
I do have it for Science Direct, and Nora can come in. She will know better for the other deals.
That request came from the faculty. It didn't come from us.
Nora, do you want to add anything there? Are you still there, Nora?
Sorry, yes, I am.
All right.
Spring and Nature. Yeah, I know you get everything for that year. Whatever you've paid, that is yours to keep. But I'm not sure about back files for all the others. I'd have to check and see.
Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing with Springer, is that you continue to have access for the years that you subscribe to, so you don't have to worry about your historically subscribed title list. Are there any other questions? All right. I'm just going to quickly scan everywhere, make sure I can't see any hands up or any notes. Then just the last thing I think is just to let you know that I'll send out another email, but I'd just like to get some feedback from everybody about having these sort of webinars. We've already planned 2 further webinars. We haven't come up with the exact date for this. Can you see my screen? I'm sharing the mail I sent out. But Scope 3, we're hoping to have it late in August. We haven't pinned down the exact date. And with JISC in the UK, we've arranged a meeting next Wednesday at 3 p.m. But could I get a sense from you whether we could increase the frequency of these meetings, you know, perhaps have 2 a week rather than 1 a week, or whether 1 a week is about all that you can manage? I haven't set up a poll for that, I'm afraid, but you can just comment on that. Okay, I'm seeing 1 a week. I've only seen 1 suggestion there. 1 a week sounds good. Hey? Okay. And does a Wednesday afternoon generally work? I know you can't really predict what meetings you're going to be called into, but would you prefer them in the afternoon, say at 3 o'clock, or would you prefer it at 5 o'clock? Or, you know, is there a preferred time of day that is best suited?
Hi, Glenn.
Yes.
This is Frida from Namibia.
Hi, Frida.
How are you?
Good, and you?
I would prefer that we have meetings during the day. I don't know about anybody else, but I would prefer that we have it during like 3 o'clock, because 5 o'clock I might not be home yet. And
yes. Okay. So it seems like, I'm watching the chat, it seems like most people would prefer us to aim for 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. Obviously.
And one question.
Yeah.
Okay, I see Nora is in the house, but because I'm new in this, I have no idea what's really going on. Would you kindly share the presentation apart from Jason's one, or apart from the recording ones? Can you share the presentation with me so that I can just go through it tonight?
Sure. Okay. So I will try and load
my email.
Sorry?
On the email though, or I don't know.
Yeah, I will try and send you, it will take me a while it takes a while to load the presentation in a format that is easy for you to access. But if you go to the Unsub website, unsub.org.
Okay.
And then you just scroll down.
Yeah.
You'll get to this Take a Guided Tour. And that's a 19-minute and 30-second little video that pretty much covers what he presented. I think he showed some interesting things in our presentation that aren't in here, but most, that covers 90% of what he demonstrated.
Okay, would that now help our university in selecting the new databases, or just the improvements of your services?
I think that the best way to do that is to possibly have conversations directly with Nora.
Okay.
But Nora, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, no, sure. I'll contact Frida.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, Glenn.
All right, my pleasure. Anything else from anybody? Okay, so thank you very much for participating. I'm going to end this poll and let you know what the result is. So there were 16 people who responded to the poll, and out of the 16, just over half, 9 said yes, you would be keen on subscribing, and the remainder said they weren't sure, but nobody said no. So just for your interest's sake. And I think that's where we should end it for now. And please, I think if we can communicate with each other as much as possible, and we'll do our best. And if you have suggestions of the sort of webinars you'd like to participate in, please let us know, and we'll do our best to accommodate that. The other webinars that we're planning is that we would like to get a comparison of the aggregators, EBSCO, Gale, and EBSCO, ProQuest, and what are they called, Nora? I'm sorry.
Gale.
It is Gale, yeah. To see what it is they offer, and whether or not that might be another alternative source of material if one is forced to cancel something. So it's quite important to know, for example, if you're going to cancel one of the big 5 deals, would you be able to get some of that material, albeit with an embargo, via the aggregators? But there we go. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for giving us some of your personal time. And I wish you a very good week for the rest of the week. Thanks so much. And goodbye, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Thanks, Glenn.
Okay, take
Bye.
care. Bye-bye then.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.